He's got the cornfield calm, Midwest tone, but he's spitting facts like a dog with a bone. Lanky frame, fire-haired, eyes on the case, breaking down the game and the darkest place. Sports scores to murder boards, Hoosier logic cuts like swords. From Friday lights to chalked out lines, this redhead's brain rewrites the lines inside the Hoosier mind, where the stories twist and stats unwind. He's a legend in flannel, mic in hand, digging deep where few can stand. From touchdowns to crime scenes raw, he's got the truth in every draw. Yeah, step in if you dare to find what's brewing inside the Hoosier mind. He'll talk Pacers, Colts, or Colts on trial. Hoosier humor with a devilish smile. He's that redhead sleuth with a box of clues. Takes your headline, breaks the news. With every stat and every scream, he's painting portraits in your stream. Don't blink, he'll tie it tight. From game night wins to murder flight. Inside the Hoosier mind, where the facts hit hard and the lines are blind. He's a ginger ninja, sleuth and slick, cracking cases play by play quick. From courtrooms to the hardwood floor, he digs for more than just the score. Tune in and don't rewind, you're deep now inside the Hoosier mind.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome into Inside the Hoosier Mind, brought to you by Military Broadcast Radio, helping give veterans a voice. Happy holidays and Merry Early Christmas, because we're doing this live on December 23rd, so just a couple days before. Obviously, we had a lot heat up as far as college football goes. We've had a lot heating up as far as the NFL goes. College football is now into the second round of the playoffs, and the NFL season, the regular season, is almost coming to a close. We have just about 3 weeks left, and now we're starting to get teams that are really solidifying themselves as the front runners. We even have a few division winners so far in the NFL, and we're going to talk about all of it. I did originally have Mike scheduled to come, but unfortunately Mike is having some personal issues at the moment that he's having to overcome and deal with, so it's probably just going to be me talking for a little bit, but nonetheless, it should still be a pretty decent show. And if you want to join in, if you want to make comments, please do. You can follow pretty much all of the social medias on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, at Inside the Hoosier Mind, or through Military Broadcast Radio. That's MB Radio on just about every single social media handle, and you can follow us there. But let's dive into the college football part, my favorite part, because there's been a lot of controversy that has come about from the first round matchup, mostly being the fact that Tulane and JMU, the 11th and the 12th seeds, both got beat by Oregon and Ole Miss respectively. And not only did they get beat, they got beat pretty handedly. But again, nobody was really surprised that that was going to end up being the case. We all figured that was going to happen. Overall, it's just the talent difference is pretty major when it comes to the group of six schools as compared to the Power Four. And that's led to a lot of people saying that we need to just get rid of the group of six champions being able to be in, that they shouldn't have been in, they shouldn't have been a representation, and that could have potentially opened the door for maybe other teams to take over their spots. And I do and don't agree with that. Here's why I do agree that the group of six schools should not be in the regular college football playoffs. The reason being, let's be honest, the tale of Cinderella stories as far as college football goes, they're more than likely gone, especially with NIL, the fact that now there's a lot of teams you can buy your entire roster. You know, there's going to be coaches now that as they're coming in, Lane Kiffin being one of them, for example, because he was such a hot topic in the news for LSU and what he was able to do at Ole Miss. Obviously, Deion Sanders got a lot of heat there for a while because of how much Deion Sanders enters into the portal to get his players. That's going to be the case. It's very similar to like how the NFL does with free agency. You're going to have coaches that come into a new program and they're going to go in the portal and they're going to get guys that are probably just going to be there for more than likely just a year rental and just to see what they have. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. However, when you have these schools like Tulane and JMU, they're not going to have the financial depth or the financial backing that Oregon, that Ole Miss, that LSU, that Ohio State is going to have. They're not going to have the depth that all of these big Power 4 schools have. So to say that they shouldn't belong, I don't necessarily think they don't belong, but I do think for their own personal benefit to highlight their players and to highlight their skill set for groups and peers that are more equal to their level, they should have their own playoffs just like the FCS does. And for people who don't know, FBS is Division 1. It's a lot of your big name college football brands like Miami, Alabama, Georgia, USC, Oregon, etc. That's your FBS. FCS is still Division 1, but it's more like North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Montana State, a lot of the um, still Division 1 schools that just don't have the money, the backing, or have just not been elevated to FBS level. And FCS has their own college football playoff system. I think they get like 24 teams in. And it's super interesting how they have their brackets set up. I think their playoffs is like a month long, by how everything's set up and by how it looks, but it's entertaining and it's fun. And they have their own awards that they're able to win, similar to the Heisman. They have their own records. They have championship teams like North Dakota State has won like 11 championships or something like that. It's crazy at even the dynasties and the overall just success that can be had even at a level lower than that. So for Tulane and JMU, to me, they would have better success if they were just in their own playoffs instead of trying to force them into, all right, you guys are going to go up against Oregon, insanely talented, a lot of money, a lot of good players. Dan Lanning's one heck of a coach, super deep pockets, and Ole Miss, who the exact same way. A lot of talented players, very deep, very well ran. Even with Lane Kiffin gone, Pete Golding is doing a fantastic job so far. Now, albeit it's still just the first game, but we'll see how that ends up ultimately playing out overall. So, to me, I get why people wouldn't want them in. Here's my other counter argument, though, as to why they are in. They're in because of how the overall college football playoff contract is set up, because you have to have at least, at minimum, your 5 highest conference champions, which in this case, it was Tulane was the next highest conference champion, because otherwise you're going to have an 8-5 Duke out of the ACC getting into the playoffs, getting probably be equally as bad, if not worse, than what Tulane and JMU did. And everybody's not going to be a fan of that, because why are they even in? Now, that leads down the whole rabbit hole question and argument of the ACC needs to fix their whole tie-breaking scenario, because realistically, should Duke have been in their conference championship game by overall records, by entertainment, by pretty much everything fans outside of Duke want? No, but that's how their rules are set up. That's who ended up getting in. And so I get why Duke wasn't put in and why Tulane and JMU was. And not only are we looking at the 5 highest conference champions, but then at least one group of 6 champion is also going to get in. So it just so happens there was another group of 6 championship team that was better than the ACC, and that's why they got put in there. So I get why, and I get why they shouldn't be in the college football playoffs. And it is what it is. And for people that are criticizing them and hating on them, that's not their fault. It's really not. They came in, they competed the best that they could, and for the people that are still criticizing, they still hate it, oh, they're doing everything they can to show that group of five schools shouldn't be in there. That's not necessarily true. John Summerall came out and said, look, I have not told any of my guys that it's good to lose. You never have a good culture, and you never tell somebody, oh, it's okay to lose, you should lose, just lose. No, don't ever do that. These guys are competitors. They're competitors at the highest level. I fully expect a lot of these guys on Tulane and JMU to more than likely go on to have success in the NFL or even in other professional sports leagues. They're going to be fine, but it is a tall task. It is a tall task to ask them, oh, hey, by the way, go beat two of the top schools in the entire country when it comes to football right now and expect them to be close. Like that's just unrealistic. And it's not fair to them to say, oh, you shouldn't have been in, because again, that's a tall task to ask from them. So that's my thoughts on it. As far as everybody's hate on them, it's nothing really surprising. It did make the first round really not as enjoyable because of that. But if realistically, if you look at a lot of the college football playoffs anyway, even if you look at last year's, it's about the same. You're always going to have those games that just aren't as entertaining as they should be. So if we look at last year, and I think this is where people got a little bit spoiled. For the first round last year, you had Clemson and Texas. Texas ended up beating them pretty easily. Nobody was really surprised by that. You had Tennessee versus Ohio State. That one was probably one of the biggest marquee matchups as far as names go, but Ohio State thumped Tennessee with no problem. They beat them by 25 points. SMU versus Penn State, again, not really a surprise. We knew SMU was going to get beat pretty bad by Penn State. I don't think that comes as a shock to anybody. And then probably the other best game of the weekend was Indiana versus Notre Dame, and Indiana lost by 10 points. Ultimately, not bad, but again, a little bit of a surprise. So the fact that people want the better games, the better matchups, I get it. But again, I truly don't understand the whole, oh, get rid of teams because you want better matchups, when we've seen other Power 4 teams come in and they get beat just as bad. Like, it's the playoffs. It's going to happen. Even in round 2 of last year, Texas barely squeezes by Arizona State. Great game. Awesome. Ohio State versus Oregon. Ohio State thumped Oregon. Not really a fun game. Penn State did the same thing to Boise State, 31 to 14. And then Notre Dame beat Georgia. Again, not really fun and exciting games. Now, the next two, Texas versus Ohio State, more fun. Notre Dame versus Penn State, really fun. And then Ohio State versus Notre Dame, not as fun. So I get where people want more of the entertainment. They want more of a fun factor to it. It's just not going to happen. Like, it's just not. Now, the second round of the playoffs, coming this weekend, that will be a lot more fun. That'll be a lot more fun because you have Oregon versus Texas Tech. Will be an interesting matchup. I feel like that's honestly just a total toss-up. Oregon is actually only a 1.5 point favorite as of now, about 1 week before it takes place. You have Alabama taking on IU at the Rose Bowl. IU is actually a touchdown favorite. Again, I feel like that could really go either way. You have Ole Miss versus Georgia. Georgia's a 6.5 point favorite. Again, I feel like it could go either way. Ole Miss really gave Georgia everything that they could handle this past season. That was Ole Miss's only loss this season, was to Georgia, so maybe a little bit of a revenge game for them. And then you have Miami versus Ohio State, and Ohio State is a 9.5 point favorite. Again, we saw Ohio State struggle against IU. Miami gets kind of the upset win over Texas A&M that they weren't supposed to win, and we'll ultimately end up seeing how that goes. So it'll be a more interesting playoff from that point forward. But for everybody that just gets mad that the games weren't close, those teams shouldn't be, just stop. It's still college football. It's still entertainment. It's still good. It's just not as good as what we think it could be. And how many times have we seen marquee matchups and they're just duds? I mean, realistically, the Texas A&M versus Miami, did I want that to be a 10-3 game? Absolutely not. I wanted it to be way more entertaining than that, because it was 3-3 with like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Not necessarily a fun game, because college is not known for being a defensive game, and that was purely a defensive game because those offenses absolutely struggled. But again, that's just me personally. But nonetheless, though, we will take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more of the NFL. Unfortunately, Mike's not be here to talk about the Bears, but we'll talk a little bit about the NFL, how all of that playoff picture and scenario is shaping up. But when we come back, in the meantime, we're going to listen to Die Tired, um, So-Called Complex when we come back.
What do you think about the way I'm thinking now? Am I thinking fine? How do you feel about the way I'm feeling? 'Cause I'm not sure I'm feeling alright. What do you know about the time that I've taken staring at this wall? What do you know about the time that I've taken waiting for the never-ending fall? Dealing with this so-called complex life. What do you think about the clothes I'm wearing now? Am I looking right? What do you know about the tech I'm repping? 'Cause I'm not sure I'm secure at night. What do you know about the time that I've taken staring at this wall? What do you know about the time that I've taken waiting for the never-ending fall? There was a time when I went there to meet you, but I left with fire. Yeah, and all our dreams lead to common destinations, and all our blood runs red. It runs red. It runs, and here we stand, trying to cope with this frustration, dealing with this so-called complex life. Dealing with this so-called complex life.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to Inside the Hoosier Mind, brought to you by Military Broadcast Radio, helping give veterans a voice. Back to talk a little bit about the NFL before we close out for Christmas break and whatnot. And the NFL has finally started to heat up a little bit. I haven't watched the NFL as much this year as compared to years past, and it's kind of bad because the NFL has actually been pretty interesting this year. We've had a lot of very top heavy teams, top heavy conferences that honestly, it's anybody's game at this point. I feel like realistically that there are so many teams that could go into the playoffs, potentially cause a lot of damage, and really there's no clear-cut favorites right now. There's a lot of teams that feel like can't be trusted. Frankie, buddy, appreciate you tuning in, man. And there's just a lot of teams. It's hard to tell how they're going to perform in the playoffs because everybody has some issues. Everybody has the teams that they're just having issues beating. Um, or honestly, they're 1-1 against some of the teams that they struggle against. So, what does that look like overall as they move into the playoffs? So, let's look at the AFC and then we'll talk about the NFC because the NFC is Mike's favorite just because of his Chicago Bears sitting at the 2 seed as it stands right now in the NFC. But let's look at the AFC right now. As it stands currently, none of this is final yet. All of this could change as the season continues on. We have Denver sitting at the 1 seed, New England sitting at the 2, and Jacksonville sitting at the 3. All three of those teams for sure have uh, playoff berths locked, so they are for sure in. We just don't know what seed they're going to be. They could be anything from the 1 to the 7 seed, but they are for sure in the playoffs no matter what. Pittsburgh is technically sitting at 4th. They have not locked up a playoff spot. Whoever comes out of the AFC North is going to have to win the division in order to get that. With the Colts losing last night to San Francisco, the Chargers and Bills both secure playoff spots as well. And then still alive for the playoffs, but not officially eliminated. Some of these teams, like Houston, is not officially eliminated. They do have to have a couple more wins. They can still win the division from Jacksonville, but I believe they still have to have Indy lose one more game in order for them to secure a playoff victory. And I believe same for the Ravens. The Ravens have to have a lot of help. They also have to hope that Pittsburgh ends up dropping a couple more games, and Baltimore has to win a couple more in order to secure their division in the AFC North and also make a postseason berth. So a lot of interesting teams, more top heavy than anything. I feel like that 7th seed is probably going to belong to either Houston or Jacksonville, whoever ends up coming out of the AFC South in 2nd place, unfortunately. But we'll have to see how that ends up playing through. And I will say that this is going to be kind of a mixture of topics, but it does tie in with the Colts. The Colts started out so hot; they were 7-1 at one point, one of the hottest teams in the league, and now they're 1-6 in their last 7 games, having brought Phillip Rivers out of retirement even just to see what they have at quarterback. And I know Mike and I actually talked about this last week, and it's been brought up a couple more times, and I still have a little bit of like questions about why they brought back um, Phillip Rivers of all quarterbacks, because there had to be other quarterbacks available for them to bring in, but they decided to bring Phil out of retirement nonetheless, though. And he hasn't necessarily done bad. You can definitely tell he's got some rust. You can tell that he's been retired for a while, and he just doesn't have the arm that he used to. For anybody who watched the game last night, you watched him try to zip a lot of balls in there, and he just doesn't have the arm strength that he used to. He wasn't as accurate as he was a few years ago. And even honestly, towards the end there a few years ago, his statistics were not exactly the prettiest. Um, According to ESPN's projected stats, if he would have played the entire season, he was projected to have roughly just under 3,400 yards, 26 touchdowns, 17 picks, and an 86.6 QBR rating, which isn't terrible. It would have been pretty good had he been able to play the full season. But again, that's a whole lot of what ifs. So far this season, he's thrown almost 400 yards, so he averages about 200 yards a game, 3 touchdowns, and then he had a couple picks last night that ultimately ended up sealing the Colts' fate. And the reason why I bring that up is because a lot of people have still criticized the fact that Cam Newton is still sitting on the bench in potentially significantly better shape than Phil. And his biggest argument is, why didn't I get a call? I'm a better athlete, potentially better shape than Phil. And if you look at Cam's stats, his last year in the league, which funny enough was the same year that was Phillip Rivers technically last year in the league before getting called out, it was not great. He struggled throwing the ball. He struggled moving. He's had a lot of issues staying healthy. Now that could change 5 years down the road. Now that he doesn't have all the abuse and the impact on his body, maybe it is different. Maybe it's different with a fresh set of eyes. He can look at things differently now that he's had a chance to truly take a break, look at everything from an outside perspective, see where he gets criticized from. Maybe it is a different Cam Newton. Who knows? But I would also say for the Colts, Phil's familiar with the system. He's familiar with Shane Steichen. A lot of the offense that Shane runs, Phil was actually running with his son's team that he was coaching in high school. So I get maybe not wanting to deal with the learning curve thing. But a lot of people would also make the argument, myself included, who better to be a better mentor to Anthony Richardson than Cam Newton, the original big-bodied athletic quarterback that can truly carry a team. And I think Cam doesn't really get enough credit for the fact of he's a big athletic guy. He could throw the ball with no problem. He could run the ball, and he could lead a team. Like, if you look at that Auburn team that won the national championship, I don't really know any other names. I don't remember any other names off of that Auburn team other than Cam Newton's. And the same for that Panthers team that ended up going to the Super Bowl in 2015 against the Broncos. I mean, he carried that team to there. Like, he was so much better than what people were willing to give him credit for. And it was sad to kind of see his career take a tumble that it did. He was doing so well with the Patriots. If Frankie's still watching, I'm sure he can attest to that Patriots team with Cam Newton pre-COVID. That was a scary Patriots team. Cam Newton was making it work. That Patriots team was on fire. Now, post-COVID, it was a little bit different situation. It was a different Cam Newton. And, he ended up bouncing around, went back to Carolina, had a little bit of a career resurgence, but Carolina was just an absolute mess at that point too. So he wasn't exactly put in the best of situations there going back either. So that just kind of is what it is. But nonetheless, though, it stinks to see the Colts start off so hot, so great, and now they are technically still alive for the playoffs, but they're very much on the fringe. With a not a high percentage point of potentially being able to make it. So it stinks to see, but it is what it is. Now, on the other side, we have the NFC, and the NFC was supposed to not be as interesting. It wasn't supposed to be as top heavy. We figured that we would have a lot of kind of the heavy hitter favorites that we expected to have. And ultimately, so far, that's proven to not be true. Detroit is really struggling. They're technically just on the outside looking in potentially. They need some help as far as people getting eliminated, people tripping up and whatnot. And MJ, I see you. The Pinstripe Bowl, Penn State versus Clemson. Ooh, that'll be interesting to see because Clemson ended up having a really bad year. Penn State had a really bad year. So we'll kind of see how that ends up going out. But in Yankee Stadium in the Bronx in New York, you're not that far. Are you gonna go? Are you gonna go see your Nittany Lions versus the Clemson Tigers? But back to the NFC though. Seattle is currently at the 1 seed. Again, all of this is subject to change. The 2 seed is the Chicago Bears. Philly is the only divisional winner as it stands currently right now. They won the NFC East with Dallas losing. And Philly being able to get the win. They're sitting there at 10-5. Carolina is in the driver's seat of the NFC South, sitting there at 8-7. And then you have San Francisco ended up securing a playoff spot last night with a win. And they are technically ahead of the Rams, who are sitting at the 6th seed. And then right now, as it stands, you have Green Bay at the 7th, and Detroit is looking out. Both of these teams, depending on if Green Bay loses loses 2 more games, and if Detroit wins, Detroit would get in. Now, the problem for Detroit is if Green Bay wins at least another game, they still have the tiebreaker. Actually, they have both tiebreakers head-to-head against Detroit because they swept them this season. So that's one of the issues that Detroit is having to run into. They're 1-3 against the division so far this year, and so they're really going to be struggling. They need a lot of help in order to get in. And it's interesting to see because Seattle is led by Sam Darnold, who has had a bit of a career resurgence. That Seattle defense is actually a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. And I didn't expect Seattle's offense to be as potent without DK there. Now, obviously, Jackson Smith and Jigba has done fantastic for them. But I'll be honest, I was not expecting. I was not expecting them to be this prolific of a team to be in this position of being 12-3 and only two of those losses having come from their division. So realistically, they're sitting there at 12-1 against basically everybody that's outside of their division as it stands. We'll get to the Bears last because I know Mike wants to talk about the Bears. Maybe he can make a sneak in appearance. We'll see. But Philly is one, honestly, I do not trust Philly right now. Philly has a lot of offensive issues. Their defense is having to carry them. And it's a lot of questions with Jalen Hurts. And it stinks because I watched Jalen Hurts in college. I've watched him throughout the NFL. Everybody brings up the fact he's had a different offensive coordinator every single year from college all the way up to his professional year now. I'm going to say this. It's not that I don't think he can. Philly is not designed for that. And I wonder, especially now with the fact of they've never really had him be that guy in Philly, can he be that guy? Because they've always had him, they've almost always with him had a pretty decent run game. I mean, don't get it twisted. Saquon last year was magical. That was hard to replicate. Saquon this year, a little bit of a down, not as high in production. And then running back by committee before that, as far as Gainwell, as far as Miles Sanders and whatnot. So they have talent all over that Philly roster with Devontae Smith. AJ Brown has been there, but AJ Brown is the other issue there in Philly because when they target him a lot, when they truly utilize him in the game, they lose. If they don't, they win, and it's crazy. But the offense is a huge question for Philly. Philly does not look like the dominant team that we were used to seeing last year, where if you came into Philly or Philly came into you were going to get bullied, you were going to get beat up. That's not really the case now. Philly is pretty vulnerable and pretty susceptible, and I wouldn't be surprised if I don't necessarily know about a first round bounce like people are saying, but I feel like they are going to struggle the first round, and they may end up losing in the second, depending on who they have to face as the playoffs go on. Carolina is interesting because of how much they've bounced back. Kudos to Bryce Young. I did not have a lot of faith in that young man, full transparency. I didn't care for him coming out of college. I thought he was small. The fact that he had a severely talented Alabama team around him, and a lot of Alabama quarterbacks struggle when they go into the NFL because they don't have those 5-star prospects and first round draft picks surrounding them anymore. They got guys on, couple steps down from that, and usually they struggle. And kudos to him for making a comeback and honestly leading a team that right now is sitting at 8-7 that nobody really expected them to be there. I didn't expect them to be there at all. Technically, Tampa Bay is still alive for the division, but the same thing. They need Carolina to lose a couple, and they have to win out in order to ultimately get that, because they just actually beat Tampa Bay to take control of the NFC South. Then you have the San Francisco 49ers, who through all the injuries, through Brock Purdy being hurt, through a lot of youth, are sitting there at 11-4, still in contention for the NFC West. Same with the Rams, sitting there at 11-4 in contention. 3 teams coming out of the NFC West, and I feel like all 3 of them honestly could make a run for the Super Bowl. I don't trust San Francisco as much just because of some of the experience, some of the injuries and whatnot, but we'll see. And if I had to pick out of Seattle, San Francisco, and Los Angeles a favorite to maybe go all the way, I would probably pick Los Angeles just because of it being Matt Stafford, the experience he has. He still has Puka, albeit a little bit injured. Now, Devontae, I don't know if he lost Devontae for the year or not, but again, the experience and whatnot is still there, and that Rams team is extremely talented. So we'll see how that goes. And then honestly, Green Bay and Detroit, Green Bay lost Jordan Love to the Bears this past game. He got a concussion, so who knows if he'll be back for Green Bay's last couple of games or not, because they still have to face the Ravens and they have to face the Vikings to close the year out. So who knows how that's going to end up going. The Ravens are going to be fighting hard for a spot, and the Vikings, it's your division rival. Who knows if J.J. McCarthy's going to be there or not? That's a tall task, and who knows which J.J. McCarthy is going to show up. Is it going to be 9, or is it going to be J.J. McCarthy? We'll see. And for the Lions, they have a little bit of a benefit because they have to go to Minnesota and face them on Christmas, and then they have to go to Chicago, which that's going to be rough because it's going to be cold weather. Now the Bears do have to face San Francisco next, which is going to be a little bit of a struggle for them as far as talent goes, but they do have a little bit of the benefit of it's at San Francisco, so it's a little warmer. You don't have to worry about the frigid cold temperatures. Otherwise, I would have honestly taken Chicago in this if it was in Chicago. And then they host the Lions, obviously, which if we know anything about Jared Goff over the last few years, he does not do well in the cold at all. So we will see. This is an interesting time of year. Everything's heating up. You have the playoffs. You have everybody fighting as hard as they can. Even have teams fighting just to play spoiler to some of the teams that they don't care for and that they don't like because, hey, if I can't get in, I don't want you to get in either, to be honest with you. So it'll be interesting to see. College football's heating up. The NFL's heating up. And it's just a fun time, to be honest with you. The only bad part, it's warm here in the Midwest, and it's going to be like 65 degrees on Christmas. I'm not a fan. I want a snowy, cold Christmas on Thursday, but unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get it. So I think I'll end a little bit early, but I appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope everybody has a happy holiday, has a safe time. Please enjoy time with family and friends. If you don't, please reach out to somebody. I'm sure there are multiple families, multiple friends that would be willing to host you, have you. And if you can, don't sit by yourself. It's a really lonely time when you do. Call somebody. You can probably call just about everybody here at MBR if you need somebody to talk to, just hang out with, anything like that. Just so you don't have to be alone over the holidays, because that's a rough time to have to deal with. And it's something that nobody enjoys doing, nobody likes having to do, is be alone. So please feel free to reach out. If you need somebody to talk to, if you just want somebody to hang out with, please do. I'm sure there are a ton of people that would be more than happy and more than willing to, just to make sure that everybody has as fun of a holiday as we can. If you like this and if you like more of the other great veteran hosts here at MBR, please check out mbradio.us is the main website. It's also the Instagram. You can Google search MB Radio. It says everything it can about all the great veterans, all the great hosts here at MBR, and the great mission that MBR does. A lot of veterans, they have great stories. They have great life advice. They're great teachers. They're great mentors. They're funny, if anything. And it's something that a lot of people can learn from. A lot of their stories are extremely useful to so many people across the board in situations that, for us in the military, if we've learned anything over our time, we are put in such unique, such weird situations. And when we tell it to people who aren't in the military, they look at us kind of weird, like, what are you talking about? That doesn't happen. Oh, yes, it does. And another veteran will hear this and go, nope, that absolutely happens. So take advantage of all the knowledge, take advantage of all the advice that they have to give you. They're absolutely fantastic. I love being a veteran. I've loved being a part of MBR. It's been fantastic. I appreciate everything that all of them do, and all the ones behind the scenes that you may not get to see as much, that put in just as hard of work. I appreciate and love them too. Nonetheless, so everybody have a happy holiday, have a Merry Christmas, whatever you prefer, whatever you celebrate. And we will see y'all at the beginning of the new year to discuss more college football, more NFL, more sports, everything in between. Hope everybody has a good night, and we will see y'all later.
Life is like a duck. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. Here at Military Broadcast Radio, we're teaming up with our friends at Die Tired, the veteran-friendly music band spreading strength, resilience, and mental health awareness one shirt at a time.
And check this out. Their brand new shirts feature broadcast beaker right on the breast pocket. A reminder that you can weather the storm, and you're never alone.
Shirts are only $25 and proceeds support giving veterans a voice. MBR's mission to teach veterans how to podcast and videocast. Because when our vets are talking, they're not overthinking. They're not second-guessing. Together, we stop the 22 stigma. Grab your shirt today at mbradio.us and hit the shop. Or go directly to toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband. That's toramerch.printavo.com/merch/dietiredband.
Suit up, stand strong.
Remember, we're unduckable together.
You're built tougher than the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.